Look, I didn't want to be a Percy Jackson hater. If you think you like this show, turn off this video now. Believe what all the delusional critics tell you, and try to live a happier life. If you're able to keep believing this show is amazing, great. Keep watching. But if you feel a sense of doubt, you feel like maybe this show was actually really bad, like really bad, stop watching this video immediately. You might be one of us. And once you know that, it's only a matter of time before they sense it too. And they'll come for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. Let's talk Percy Jackson. If you're anything like me, Percy Jackson and the Olympians hold a very special place in our hearts. It's one of the first novels I ever read, and this exact copy is the first book I ever bought for myself. So it's easy to understand that there would be such a division between the fan base on whether the Disney Plus adaptation is good or not. And if you've been watching my channel, I haven't been exactly subtle about my opinion on the show. Now, is it as bad as the adaptation that shall remain unnamed? No, of course not. That movie holds a very special place in Tartarus. But the question, is it good, is much more complicated than a yes or no, and kinda depends on what you like to see in a remake. It does very well at replicating the scenes from the book, and is faithful in a way that it doesn't hardly exclude anything, even smaller scenes like the shopping for waterbeds, or the bus ride. And the changes that are made are usually for the better. Just look at some of the major scenes that they took from the book and how the show improved upon them. Medusa's scene went from a creepy lady trying to take a picture to a sympathetic woman who's been wronged by the gods. Echidna went from one quick battle during a pointless sightseeing tour to an entire chase scene. The Tunnel of Love went from finding the shield instantly to having a funny scene in the tunnel before arriving at the pool. They added really cool ideas to the Fields of Asphodel. And let's not forget Luke's fight with Percy. This scene was spectacular compared to the book. This felt like a worthy climax to a story. And they didn't just improve some of the scenes, they really nailed some of the characters. Mr. T was everything I could have hoped for.
Peter Johnson is here! Okay, for those of you who are not staying for the full term, get up!
Medusa and Echidna are hitting the creepy meter right on the dot. Gabe, while kind of an annoying jerk, is funnier and more relatable than the walking pile of garbage he was in the books.
Make sure they put the hot peppers on my sandwich, please.
Not if you're gonna ask like that.
I said please. Please, could you have them put the peppers on my sandwich?
You got it.
Is this a problem? I don't know, maybe. It does make me sad that he in the end, but at least Sally doesn't commit murder by petrification anymore. And Sally. Oh my gosh, Sally. Out of every character, I think she probably changed the most, and I am here for every bit of it. She's stronger, more stubborn, more protective of Percy. You see her struggle, but also how she's fighting through it for the sake of her son. She's so much more of a mom boss. I think some people hated this because in the book, we were supposed to feel bad for her because she was stuck with Smelly Gabe and she never stood up for herself. But this rendition really changes that into, we don't really feel bad for her about Gabe anymore, but we feel bad for her for the struggles that she has to deal with Percy and the things that she can't keep him from despite her being a mother who just wants to protect her little boy.
Why are you trying so hard to get rid of me?
And can we just talk about this scene? Poseidon, god of the seas, just shows up as soon as she called. This was probably one of like my favorite scenes in the show. This was just perfection. It was perfection. So this is a good adaptation, right? Right? See, I don't think the problem comes from whether the show kept to the book material or not. And despite the fact that some things were amazing, the real problem is, although they copied the scenes, the names, the lines directly from the book, they didn't copy the heart, the soul, the emotions the book made us feel. And I know, I hear all of you, but Moon, Rick worked on this. This is what Rick wanted. First of all, just because Rick has written a multitude of good books does not mean he can't mess up. Just look at Harry Potter, the show that changed the world, and its successor Fantastic Beasts, a complete flop on its name. Both written by the same author. But I'm not saying this is the case. What I really think, or at least like to believe, is that writing a movie and writing a book is not the same thing. Rick couldn't be there for every edit and every line and every cut. These are made by the producers and directors, and I don't exactly know what they all do, so I'm just going to refer to it as Disney, but Disney is the one that puts the pieces together. Rick is there helping out, but that doesn't mean he has the final say in what comes out. And is Rick completely happy with what happened? We'll probably never know because he's under a Disney contract, maybe in 50 years. I just don't believe there was love, at least from Disney, when it comes to the show that they were creating. Remembering what the show did right, let's now talk about what the show did wrong. And because I'm a nerd, I have composed an entire chapter list of the things that we're going to be talking about for your viewing pleasure. Chapter 1. A god adds random plot to confuse us. As an adaptation, we are bound to see additions being made to the story, whether it be to the plot or to the characters, and this can be great. I'm all for this. A perk to cinema compared to a novel is that it can show you so much more in so little time. But it didn't feel like they tried doing this. The majority of the time, these scenes felt forced and out of place, and like it didn't match up with the full plot of the story. Number 1. We have this scene in episode 1 where Grover lies and betrays Percy, saying that he did see Percy push Nancy into the fountain. We can see this hurts Percy, him saying that he doesn't even want to see Grover again. But in episode 3, after Percy has talked to the Oracle and she tells him that a friend will betray him, Percy chooses 2 people to go on the quest with him. 1, Annabeth, a person he thinks will never be his friend, and 2, Grover, a friend that he trusts so much that he thinks he could never betray him. I don't understand. If you wanted us to believe that Grover could never betray Percy, why, in his introduction, in his first few lines, betray Percy? I do get that Percy needs to be expelled. I like this better than in the book when he stays the whole year. But couldn't you just have the principal expel Percy instead of dragging Grover into it? I feel like they were just trying to give Grover more of a purpose in the show because these next few scenes are all tied into Grover, and all of them have no purpose. One of them is when Chiron decides to talk to Percy alone. They walk off, Grover looks into the fields and says, "This doesn't feel right." What doesn't feel right? That's all we get. There's eerie music and Mr. D is acting really creepy in the background. And if I wasn't a book reader, I would be thinking that Chiron is like going to kill Percy or something. Like, it's not very clear at all, and it doesn't have a plot element later on in the series. Like, him saying it doesn't feel right never comes up again. Then we have another scene where Grover comes up to Chiron and Mr. D saying that he knows Percy's mom is alive. And Mr. D and Chiron act super strange about it. They are adamant about not telling Percy that his mom is alive. And again, I don't really get why. Chiron never says his reasoning. He's really strict about it, and he's like, Percy cannot know. But we never find out why, even when Percy finds out that his mom is alive. Now, I can come to the assumption that Chiron doesn't want Percy to die by trying to go to the underworld to get his mother back. But why does Mr. D care? It feels like Mr. D actually cares more than Chiron, and we all know Mr. D doesn't care about the safety of the students. So why doesn't he want Percy to know? All of these scenes have Grover at the forefront, so I believe it was just Disney trying to give Grover more of a point to the story, which I like the idea of, but these scenes don't develop Grover's character, they don't develop his motivations or his flaws. It does nothing for Grover and nothing for the plot of the story. We could have just told Percy that his mother was alive once he got his quest, and all of this would have been solved. Number 2, the Medusa plotline. In episode 1, one of Sally's first lines is, "Not everyone who looks like a monster is a monster." And in this scene, she's looking at a statue of Medusa. Skip forward to episode 3, and Percy meets Medusa and says he trusts her because of his mom. And Medusa even offers to help them, telling them why she is the way she is, that the gods are unfair and cursed her because she was in love. The foreshadowing in episode 1 and this episode go really good together. I like what they're doing. And I remember when I first watched this episode, I was super excited to see what they were going to do with Medusa. Are they going to turn her into a good person? Is she going to help them until they do something bad and then she turns on them? But then the show takes everything it just showed you and everything it just made you feel, and then it ripped it apart, lit it on fire, and threw it in a ditch and said, "Ha! You thought we were going to be creative." Out of nowhere, a sympathetic Medusa says to Percy, "I can kill your friends for you." And instead of Percy just saying, no, I like my friends, please don't kill them. He runs away, and then Medusa, forgetting all of her morals and what she just said, hunts them down to kill them. Again, this is a weird choice. Why lead us from the very beginning to believe that she's going to be a good person if you're just going to randomly turn her evil for no good reason? There was no character moment here. Did you feel satisfied when her head plopped to the ground? I didn't. I was left pretty empty and disappointed that they didn't do anything else with her character. 3. Annabeth pushes Percy. In episode 2, after Capture the Flag, Annabeth pushes Percy into the lake. In episode 3, Percy says, "If the quest requires someone to push me down a flight of stairs to succeed, I'll need someone who won't hesitate to do it." And this is when he chooses Annabeth. Now, if you don't think about it too much, you might say, yes, this is good storytelling. And I do see where they're going with this, and I like the idea. Hate the execution. First of all, Annabeth has no reason to believe the water will heal Percy. In the book, Annabeth sees the water heal Percy and then tells him to get back in the water after he's attacked by a hellhound. In the show, Annabeth sees Percy waterbending in the bathroom and has no indication that water can heal him. Second, pushing Percy into the water doesn't help Annabeth succeed in the slightest. If anything, it helps Percy. And third, it is implied that Percy knows that Annabeth will sacrifice anyone to succeed. And though in the book this is very clear, after the fight with Clarice, Annabeth appears and Percy says, "You set me up. You put me here because you knew Clarice would come after me." And Annabeth shrugs, saying, "Athena always has a plan." But in the show, Annabeth never says this, and Percy never comes to this conclusion, and instead, their dialogue goes like this.
"Were you here the whole time?"
Yes.
"You were here the whole time and you didn't help me?"
Yes.
If they wanted this to come across this way, then Annabeth's push should have been directly correlated with winning the game. Instead, it feels out of place and like they were struggling to create a unique story while keeping to the book. This scene in the book was supposed to show us 4 important things: Annabeth's determination to win, her strategic thinking, Percy's ability to get power from the water, and Poseidon choosing Percy. The scene in the show only shows one of these things, Poseidon claiming Percy. Everything else just copied the scene from the book, but without any of the feelings and the character development that this scene was supposed to show. There are many other scenes that I won't completely dive into that just don't really have a purpose. Grover has this weird talk with Ares, and I can't tell if it's supposed to feel like he's betraying Percy again or just manipulating Ares. But nothing comes of it other than Grover thinking he knows who stole the bolt, and this doesn't really help our characters in any way or advance the plot. In the Lotus Lounge, Grover forgets more than Percy and Annabeth says,
It's easy to forget what's important when you're alone.
which is just the writers saying, because plot, you idiot. There's also these scenes that feel like Disney just assumed you read the book before watching the show, which is a horrible way to make an adaptation. Just look at the Capture the Flag scene that we just talked about. They assumed you knew Annabeth used Percy as bait because it's in the book, but not in the show. There's another scene where Percy goes to talk to the Oracle, and this is the beginning scene of episode 4. From the book, we understand that you need an Oracle to get a quest, but the show doesn't talk about this at all. Chiron offers the quest to Percy, Percy denies it, but then Percy accepts it to go save his mom, but no one talks about an Oracle. Even after he gets the message from the Oracle, we never discuss why he went up there in the first place. And the worst one of all is Percy coming to the realization that Kronos was behind all of this.
Kronos.
There has been almost zero mention of Kronos in this show. The only time that we hear his name is in this scene with Ares.
See, years before I was born, my grandpa Kronos ate my aunts and uncles. Yeah. Then my dad made him puke them back up, then chopped him into a million pieces and chucked him into a bottomless pit. So that kind of set the tone right out of the gate.
Wait, did you hear it? Do I need to replay it and slow it down? See, Ares just mentioned his papa Kronos and how his dad cut him up into pieces and sent him to Tartarus. But in the background, there's literally funny music playing and it's treated like this comedic scene. Nothing about this scene is saying, hey, you, listen, pay attention. This is an important plot element that will come up later. Not to mention that in Percy's dreams, we never see any hints to it being Kronos. We never see the pit of Tartarus. And so when he sees it in the underworld, it means nothing to us. This is a big plot point in the book. Percy has these dreams multiple times and even mentions them to Annabeth, who acts too scared to even tell Percy who is in the pit. And when Grover gets pulled into the pit, Percy recognizes it from his dreams. This realization hits him that this is the place that's been in all of his dreams, and he is here now at its edge. This scene is dramatic, it's tense, they barely save Grover, and as they're running away from the pit, these ghosts are calling to them, and then this great wind starts sucking them back into the pit before they finally get free. And after they're all safe, Percy and Annabeth look at each other, realizing for the first time that this is way bigger than the gods. Disney looked at all of these scenes and basically said, we need a hole, and we need Grover to be drugged into that hole. And Annabeth? Oh, she's pointless. Remove her entirely. But she's the one who's supposed to know it's Kronos. Doesn't matter. Percy never tells her about the pit anyway, because he never sees it. I'm sorry, did you say Percy never sees the pit? How does he know where the voices are coming from? He doesn't. He doesn't. Okay. We don't even need to mention that the hole leads to Tartarus. So, what purpose does the pit serve narratively? I don't know, the books do it. And then afterwards, when Percy is facing Hades, he just says, Kronos, for the big reveal. Right, Kronos. The guy we barely mention and have no plot relevance to whatsoever. Now you're getting it! This isn't how you do mysteries, Disney! You lay out clues and you let your audience solve those clues. You don't have the detective look at random guy 4 who showed up in the middle of the story and say he did it. He murdered the guy. No! Chapter 2. Disney accidentally vaporizes all dramatic irony. Do you know that feeling when your character walks into a situation and you figure out that they're in danger before they even realize it? You feel smart because the hints were there and you figured them out along the way. And you wait with anticipation as your character goes deeper into danger, not even realizing that a hungry dragon lies around the corner. Yet Disney took all that away from us. The fun and the thrill of the Percy Jackson books was that Percy is living in a world of modern mythology, and around every corner and every store there is going to be a monster, and it is our job as the audience to kind of guess who that monster is going to be related to the mythology. And it was fun. I loved this part about the books. I loved being smart and solving these little clues, even though sometimes it was super obvious. This was the charm of the Percy Jackson books. But the show removed every ounce of dramatic irony that was in the books. 1, Annabeth announces that they're in Medusa's lair before we can even see where our characters are at. Now I will admit that in the books, Percy and Annabeth were a little bit beyond believability of ignorance. They were in a cafe surrounded by stone people, being served by a lady with a full headdress asking to take their picture. Yeah, come on, Percy. You should have figured that one out. But I'm not saying the show should have done this exactly. I'm just having a problem with the fact that they reveal it to us before they even show us the name Auntie M's. They don't even mention the name Auntie M. We see one image of stone monsters, clip back to Annabeth, and she's already saying,
Auntie M has a garden full of petrified stone folks. Yeah, this is someone from our world, all right. Anyone want to guess what M is short for?
Just film it differently. Have some stone people showing up here and there. Have them pass a sign that says Auntie M's this way. Give the audience some time. I get it. Some of us have read the books. We already know what's coming. But that's even more of a reason to have our characters be oblivious for a little bit so that when we're having more fun watching them realize what situation they're in. Echidna is revealed from the very beginning, this time by Grover. Annabeth reveals as soon as they walk through the gate that they're in Hephaestus theme park. Grover reveals that they're in the Lotus Lair as soon as they enter the casino. This one I have the biggest problem with, because this scene in general would have been so much better if our characters just started slowly losing their memory, and we, the audience, saw this and noticed it without being told directly. We like to feel smart. We like to solve clues. We like to make assumptions. Give us a chance to do that. Even when they did reveal that they were losing their memories by just being in the building, it was only after the character realized it first and announced it to the audience. It didn't leave any hints whatsoever that the air was causing them to lose their memory until the character said so. Why did they just so happen to forget things as soon as they realized they could forget? While we're here, I do want to say this is the best line in the show.
Grover. I remember Grover. Man, Grover got really old. How long have we been here?
This made me laugh. Number 5, Percy reveals that Krusty is a monster in the first few seconds of the episode. Number 6, Percy realizes he has the Master Bolt immediately after it shows up in his bag. I have no idea why they did this. Number 7, immediately after Percy realizes the bolt is in his bag, he says, Ares gave us this bag, giving yet again the audience no time to realize this for themselves. Pillars of Garbage actually sums up this idea very well in his video, Percy Jackson, Are Plot Holes Worth It? And he talks about why he thinks the show removed this aspect of the book, that he thinks that they were trying to fill in some plot holes. To summarize his idea, yes, it is a little bit strange that these kids who have grown up hearing about Greek mythology wouldn't recognize the somewhat obvious signs that they are heading into a rerun episode of Greek's Greatest Tales. But the audience, who isn't expected to know the stories as well, figuring out the danger along with the characters is so much more engaging to watch. And this show rips this engagement from us at every turn. Chapter 3. They plunge to their deaths. Repeatedly. A hero choosing to sacrifice their life to save another can be a very impactful scene. It can rip out our hearts. It can make us see a person in a new light. It can strengthen a relationship. But it doesn't hold much of an impact if your characters are doing it over and over again. Number 1, we have our first sacrifice. This is Sally Jackson. I have no problem with this one. This shows Sally being super noble, very protective, and her sacrificing herself for her son was a great addition to the story. Number 2, Annabeth staying on the arch to hold off the Chimera. Again, I have no problem with this scene. It was very simple, I liked what they were doing. And then, number 3, Percy's sacrifice, which happens right after this. Percy grabs Annabeth and pulls her into the stairway, slams the door shut, and he is going to fight the Chimera while they leave. This wouldn't have been a bad scene if he didn't make the speech. I think the speech kind of ruined the whole idea of the sacrifice in the first place. See, good dramatic sacrifice needs to have one of these 3 things. 1, your character is actually in risk of dying or is going to die. 2, your character goes through an inner change in order to make the decision to be sacrificed. Or 3, we can see the reaction of the characters who are being saved. This scene does none of this. We know Percy isn't going to die. Percy doesn't have to overcome some inner struggle in order to sacrifice himself, and we don't see Annabeth and Grover's reaction. This scene is completely pointless and doesn't impact us in any way. Number 4 is Percy choosing to sit on the chair. I think all of the dramatic sacrifices should have been saved for this one so that this one felt better, because we did get to see Annabeth's reaction. Again, we know Percy isn't going to die. We know he's not dealing with any inner struggle in order to do this. Also, his speech that he makes here is almost word for word what he says in the arch, which just takes out all the emotion from it. I don't feel anything here, and I wish I did. Also, I see some people say that this is Percy's fatal flaw. And I have to really disagree. So Percy's fatal flaw is that he will risk everything, even the world, to save his friends. This, what he's doing, he is sitting in a chair, risking his life to get a shield that they didn't even try knocking out of the statue's hands. And the shield doesn't solve the quest. This shield does nothing but get Ares to get them a ride to Las Vegas. Percy isn't doing anything. He's not saving his friends. He's not saving the world. He is risking his life to get a train ticket. So it's not impactful. It just doesn't make me feel anything. I think this scene would have benefited a lot better if Percy was doing this specifically to save Annabeth. And this could have been easily achieved by having Annabeth locked up or something and he had to sit in the chair for the gate to come down. I don't know. Anything. Just make it a little bit more meaningful than getting a shield to give to Ares to get a ride to Vegas. Number 5, lastly, we have Annabeth choosing to stay behind in the fields of Asphodel. Why? I don't understand. She does the same speech again, saying for them to go on without her and she'll distract Cerberus so they can get away. It's not impactful whatsoever. And then she just uses the pearl to disappear. She was never in any danger. Clearly. Why was this scene in here? Also, side note, was there any conclusion to this scene?
Some kind of regret, right? But what would you have to regret?
Like, I liked the idea that Annabeth was trapped to the fields because of some kind of regret, and I thought we was gonna go into depth about that and like try to get Annabeth to overcome her regret. And we didn't. We just left her there. And then In the final episode, I thought, okay, maybe there's gonna be a wrap up. Percy's gonna come up to her and be like, hey, what did you regret? But there's nothing. We don't get anything from this. Was it her father? Because we don't really talk about her regretting not going to her father. I don't know. I don't know. Why, Disney? Chapter 4. They ruin perfectly good characters. This is what I consider the biggest problem in the show. You can give me bad plot lines. You can take out all the dramatic irony. You can change the whole theme of the show. But if you ruin the characters, you have just ruined the story. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the characters. I'm just going to talk about our main three, Grover, Percy, and Annabeth. I will say, overall, the majority, great actors, very bad dialogue.
I can explain.
No, you can't.
Okay.
Hey, it's me, Moon from the future. So, I was editing this video and realized I never once said anything about how I do not blame the actresses or actors for the portrayal of the characters. So, when I am ranting on the characters like Grover, Percy, and Annabeth, please know I do not mean the kids who played them. I am sure they gave it their all and did their best with what they were given. I am purely blaming the adults who wrote the dialogue, wrote the plot of the show, and put it all together, because they are the ones who had no idea what they were doing. So yeah, that's all I have to say, so back to me in the past. Now, what makes for a good character isn't exactly replicating what's in the book, though I do think it is very important to keep the main characteristics the same, because that's what makes them who they are. But expanding on those characteristics and adding more lore to their character is beneficial, like how they changed Medusa and then ruined it all by taking it all away from us. It felt like the show took the characters, removed some of their key characteristics, and added nothing in the place. So let's take a look at each character and compare them to their book selves. Number 1. Grover unexpectedly loses all purpose to the story. I think we can all agree that Grover out of our 3 characters has the least developed plot. So honestly, I didn't think the show would be able to make him worse than what he was. But they did. They really did. Disney took all of Grover's useful moments from the books, ripped them out, and gave him nothing. Nothing at all. I am telling you, this show goes an extra step to make sure that they remove Grover from any intense scene whatsoever. Medusa shows up, Grover accidentally flies off into the darkness, only return at the last moment. He does nothing to help during the Chimera chase. He stays with Ares while Percy and Annabeth go to Festus theme park. He separates from the group in the casino, and his plotline is, I assume, setting up a plotline in a different season. I literally laughed out loud when I saw this.
Is it over?
He's literally waiting outside of Krusty's for the fight to be over. What? Now, he did do one useful thing, because in the underworld, he puts on his shoes because the plot demands for him to have those on later, and he flies Percy up a wall. Not going back for Annabeth, though. Why? Some protector. I've seen people online say that, oh, Grover's not comedic relief anymore, this is so great. And they are absolutely right. Grover is not funny whatsoever. But if he's not funny, what is he bringing to the group? At least in the book, he had this arc of wanting to do good on a quest so he could get his searcher license. Not to mention in the book, he saves Percy and Annabeth twice. I honestly think Disney knew they were making Grover useless, and that's why half of his dialogue is exposition. Anytime something needed to be explained, you better bet your furry bottom that Grover was going to be there explaining it, even if he had to interrupt somebody else in order to explain what they were going to explain.
Wait, Percy? Mr. D.
Mr. Bruner?
Camp director. Mr. Bruner's real name is Chiron. Camp activities director.
Is a sanctuary for half-bloods, a safe space where you can learn
They
who
are
you are
more
and
likely
what the
to
world is
sense
like on the
more
other side
powerful
of the
than
maze.
Odysseus lands on a beach.
Child of the big
There's these
sea.
guys who forgotten where they came from,
Poseidon.
forgot everything that was important to them. And they got that way because
We
they
can't
ate
ignore
lotus
this.
flowers.
Stop. It's just math. The 3 of us plus your mom is 4 people, and only 3 pearls. Someone is staying behind.
If the show had totally dropped his character and replaced him with an information pamphlet, the show would have lost nothing. Go back through, rewatch the show, remove Grover. Nothing would change. And yet somehow we missed useful exposition about how he can talk to animals. He just walks up and awkwardly says to Percy, "They're really smart," after chatting with some boxes in a dark truck. I do want to point out that this episode is called We Take a Zebra to Vegas, and I hadn't seen one zebra. Could Disney not afford the rights to CGI in one zebra? Where's the zebra? Percy isn't impertinent. Percy being the main hero of the story, I think they tried a bit harder on him because I don't see as many flaws. He has some good lines and he's funny, but this is just the surface of Percy. There are deeper struggles that Percy has to deal with and go through for his character to develop, and I felt like the show either just didn't get them right or took them out completely. Starting from the beginning is the selection of the companions to go on his quest. In the book, Percy accepts Annabeth to go on the quest with him because he knows she's dying to go on one. This shows that he's kind, and he's thoughtful, and he's caring about what Annabeth wants. But the show does the complete opposite, making him choose Annabeth because he thinks they could never be friends. And his reasoning doesn't really make sense if you understand at all how the prophecies work in Percy Jackson, but it takes the generosity out of his choice completely. Jump forward to sending the head of Medusa to Olympus. In the book, Percy does this for one reason. He is angry at the gods. So far, he has been almost killed twice by monsters, and he's doing this quest just for the gods, and he feels like he's being toyed with. Sending Medusa's head is Percy's middle finger to the sky. But in the show, Percy sends the head because it's the safe thing to do, and that Athena will see it as tribute. Since when has Percy ever done anything out of logic? But the writers still add in the line from the book,
They will see this as impertinent. I am impertinent.
but he's not. He's not trying to be rude. He's not even angry. He's calm in this moment. Percy is supposed to think in the moment, usually his temper leading the charge. Is this a flaw to his character? Yes. It's an intentional flaw that adds depth to his personality. Why take it out? There's another important scene where Percy falls from the arch. In the book, when Percy is fighting the Chimera at the top of the arch, there are civilians cowering in the corner, in the line of fire if the Chimera were to turn in to attack them. Percy realizes this, but he also realizes that he's been beaten. He has been poisoned, his sword is missing. There's no way he can beat this Chimera. His only solution is to jump and hope that the Chimera will leave the people alone once he's gone. And that's exactly what he does. He jumps to save the people, but also he prays before he does it. He actually prays to Poseidon for the very first time, showing a little bit of his faith before he hits the water. This is good character moments. This is character development for Percy. The scene in the show is nearly copy-pasted, with Percy being poisoned. There's a hole in the floor, and he falls through it. But this time, there's no helpless civilians around to save. Yes, he does shove his friends out the door and told them to run, but it doesn't quite hold the same narrative impact as jumping out of a hole to save civilians does. It has been built up that he doesn't think his father will help him, and he even says this in his sacrifice speech.
Poseidon's never helped me before. He wasn't gonna start now.
Taking that step was a character moment for Percy, but instead of trust, he just kind of slips and falls, never praying, never showing faith. It feels strange to change the character moment but then end with the same conclusion. Percy now trusts his father. Annabeth's personality goes up in smoke. Annabeth Chase, daughter of Athena, goddess of war strategy and architecture. She's courageous, brutally honest, a dang good strategist. She's secretive but kind. She loves her friends, she loves animals, she loves her dad, and she wants to one day build something that will last 1,000 years. Annabeth from the show is rude. That's kind of like her one consistent characteristic. Annabeth is kind of the prime example of Disney taking a scene, replicating it, and not understanding why the scene was there in the first place. It is commonly known for writers of any medium that your audience latches on to first impressions. So it's very important that when you first introduce your characters, that you get your audience to like and understand them very quickly. In the books, when Percy first meets Annabeth, she is staring at him with cold, calculating eyes, as if determining the best way to defeat him in a battle. She then looks to the Minotaur horn in his hand, and Percy thinks she's going to congratulate him and be impressed, and instead says, "You drool when you sleep," and then walks off. This small scene does a few different things. 1, it shows that Annabeth is foremost a strategist. 2, her comment shows that she's brutally honest and doesn't really care about pleasantries. And 3, she's been watching him while he sleeps, which leaves us with this question of why has she been watching him? Now the show uses this exact line from the book, and this is what they do with it.
Where am I? You drool when you sleep.
This scene is just atrocious. My husband and I have actually started ironically quoting it just because of how stupid it is. What does this do for Annabeth's character? What does this show us? We don't see that she's calculating. We don't see that she's brutally honest. She's just a creepy, overly dramatic weirdo. And the lightning! Disney! Why the lightning? It doesn't even leave me with the question of why is she watching him, because I'm too concerned that she's going to eat him in his sleep. But okay, breathe. It's just one line. It's one mess up. We have multiple scenes of Percy and Annabeth in the camp that we can work with here. Oh, they took out all those scenes? And they gave them to Luke? That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I get it. Luke needed more screen time before the betrayal. I like all of that. I'm sure what little scenes and lines she does have are going to be very important and show off her character though, right? In the book, when Percy and Annabeth actually converse for the first time, we have multiple scenes where we get to know Annabeth. After the "you drool" line, the next time we see her, she is leaning against a wall, reading a book on architecture. Just this little scene shows us 3 different things about Annabeth. She's kind of a loner, she likes to read, and she likes architecture. Do you see how simple that was, Disney? Later, she scolds Percy for saying something that's not really acceptable in camp. This shows that she's a bit bossy, but she's doing it to kind of show Percy how to fit in. She's brutally honest again when she tells Percy that their parents usually ignore them and to not think that he's going to get claimed anytime soon. But then she hesitates and decides to agree with Percy when he insists that his father loves his mother, understanding that she needs to be more sympathetic to his situation. Then we have the bathroom scene where Annabeth gets completely drenched by potty water, and instead of freaking out, she says, "I want you on my team." These are the moments that make us like Annabeth, and all of these scenes happen within just a few pages. This show takes out all of those scenes and puts in this.
I can explain.
No, you can't.
Okay. Wait, I know you.
No, you don't.
Yeah, but you were there the night in the infirmary.
Yes, I'm Annabeth.
We know Disney can write good dialogue. We even seen it in the show between Sally and Gabe. What was this? This felt like a middle schooler writing a school play. What is this dialogue? On top of the dialogue, Annabeth doesn't even look like she's calculating what she just saw happened. She looks annoyed, like she knew this was gonna happen all along, which she actually does say this.
Well, I've been waiting to see if something like this would happen.
How, Annabeth? How did you know something like this was gonna happen? Is this just a normal day in Camp Half-Blood? Toilet water just sprays out and attacks children? What does this scene tell us about Annabeth? She's grumpy? She's been stalking Percy because she somehow knew he had water powers, and now she wants him to join her team on Capture the Flag. Oh, and she has no semblance of human emotion because she just saw a boy move water with his mind, and her response is,
No, you can't.
And there's not anything else to add to her character during Capture the Flag. As we already discussed, in the book she uses Percy as bait, but in the show she doesn't. In the book, Annabeth says that if the fight was to get too rough, she would have helped him, showing that she's kind again. And in the show...
Were you here the whole time?
Yes?
You were here the whole time and you didn't help me?
Yes.
This is the only real dialogue that we get between the two, and it's so short and means nothing to the character's development. In episode 2, Annabeth has less lines than Clarice. And I like Clarice better. I do think that they tried, because in episode 3, we have this scene where Mrs. Dodds comes up to Annabeth and says that she can kill Percy and Grover for her so she can complete her quest. First of all, isn't the point of having multiple people on a quest so that it's easier to complete? So that there's 3 of you against the monsters instead of just 1 of you? Or am I wrong? The offer doesn't really make a lot of sense, but ignoring that, later in the episode, it is treated as this really sympathetic moment that suddenly makes her and Percy friends. Hey, I didn't tell a Fury to kill you. Aren't I a great friend? No, Annabeth, you did the bare minimum of being a decent human being. If someone were to come up to me and say, hey, guess what? An assassin offered to slit your throat, but you know what I said? I said, nah, man. And I would have said, thanks, man. And then I would have ran for my life. It's like they completely missed what made Annabeth and Percy grow closer together. In the books, there are many scenes that show the growth between Percy and Annabeth, but there are 3 scenes I want to point out that I think show their growth very well. So the first scene is from chapter 10. It's the beginning of their quest, and Percy says to Annabeth, remind me again, why do you hate me? And this isn't because Annabeth is constantly grumpy.
You drool when you sleep.
She tries to be friendly with him, but ends up coming off a bit snippy. Annabeth's response is that their parents are rivals, so they aren't supposed to get along. Our second scene comes from chapter 13. Annabeth tells Percy that if her father was stuck in the underworld like his mom, she would leave him there to rot. Annabeth, who's been very private about her past, finally opens up a little bit to Percy, telling him a little bit about her father and how she left at the age of 7. But we can tell that she's still not telling Percy everything, and Percy doesn't want to push. And Percy even says that he wished that he could make her feel better in this scene. Scene 3 is in chapter 16, and Annabeth is playing with the ring on her necklace. Percy finally questions her about it, and we can see that she's hesitant. This is something she doesn't tell people, but then she opens up even more, telling him her father sent her a letter saying he loved her and wanted her to come live with him again. Percy tells her that she shouldn't give up and that she should reach out to her dad again. And by the end of the book, she listens to his advice, showing how much they've grown. This scene ends with Annabeth saying that no matter what side her mother is on, she will be on Percy's side. This is growth, and it's earned growth. In the show, these 3 scenes are kind of combined into one scene on the train. And in this scene, Annabeth still tells Percy about her father and how she left when she was 7, but there's no real emotion to it. We don't see her struggling to tell Percy this private information. We don't even know this is something that's hard for her to talk about, and we don't have Percy giving her advice. Instead, the conversation veers into another theme speech about how the godparents are bad, which I don't really understand because they preach throughout the whole show that the gods are bad, and then by the end, Percy says,
Our parents aren't perfect, but they're trying their best.
There's no character growth. There's no character moments. I want to see more Percy and Annabeth. I want to see them growing closer together. The show just doesn't understand Annabeth, which is wild to me since Rick was working on this project. Instead of showing her fear of the spiders in the Tunnel of Love and then Percy coming to her rescue, we instead show her coming to this conclusion that she doesn't want to do something for the glory anymore. Was this a character arc for Annabeth? I don't really remember her, ever doing something for the glory. She didn't want to send Medusa's head, which might have been a hint at her wanting to do something for the glory. There was the capture the flag scene where she uses Percy as bait to win. I almost got you there, didn't I? Yeah, because she didn't do that in the show. She only did that in the book. So this moment, yet again, wasn't earned. There was no emotion behind it. There was no character development truly behind it because it doesn't feel like Annabeth changed. She acts the same in the first 3 episodes as she does in the last 3 episodes. There's no shift in her character. And now you want to show me that she cares for Percy? Why? What have they done for each other? Other than not send assassins after each other? Nothing. She has hated him this whole time except for random moments where Disney is like, look, they like each other, they just hugged. Did you see them hug? They hugged. But we never see them growing as friends, let alone love interest. We also have the Cerberus scene, which is supposed to show how Annabeth used to have a dog and loves animals. She actually loves animals so much that when she has to leave Cerberus alone, she's crying. But the show takes this scene and instead Annabeth is hanging on to Cerberus for dear life while she scratches him. And then in the background, she is saying, I used to have a dog when I was a child. Again, they take out all of the emotion, all of the character development. Anything that has to do with Annabeth is just ruined. And one of the dumbest things that they removed was Annabeth figuring out that Kronos was the one talking to Percy. She is supposed to be the wise one. She's the one supposed to be figuring out these things. And it was cool that she knew and even kept it from Percy because she was scared of that knowledge. But instead, we have this scene where she's the only one in the group who doesn't realize that it's Kronos until Percy says it.
It was Kronos. It was his idea to frame Poseidon's kid and steal Hades' helm and Zeus's bolt to start a war. What?
And she's supposed to be the wise one. Instead, they removed her from the episode completely. Why did they do this? I do not understand why we removed Annabeth and not Grover. What purpose did that serve? We don't talk about the regret that she has in the fields of Asphodel, so why did we do it? I thought this was gonna be really cool. I thought we was gonna have to talk to Annabeth about her regret and get her to overcome it in the moment while the Cerberus was coming to eat them so that she could get free. But they didn't do that at all. They just left her and then she teleported out of there. And I don't see the point of this scene. What is this writing? I don't know anymore. I don't understand. Okay. Chapter 5, leaving on a good note. I don't know what happened, but episode 8 was actually really good. I liked everything they did. I liked the visuals. I liked Percy. He was more Percy this time. And Luke's character change from just blatantly being evil to being someone who's reasonable and does really care about Percy. Oh my gosh, that scene was amazing. And when Luke realizes he's the one that is betraying Percy, you can see the hurt in his face. He didn't want to betray Percy. He truly wanted Percy to join his side. And I love that they added Annabeth to this scene. I think this is really cool character conflict and she should have been there in the book. Though I do think that in the show, Annabeth and Luke's relationship wasn't written out very well. Again, I think this is an Annabeth problem that they just never really showed who she cared about and why. And I'm not saying I wanted it to be like the book and her have this super crush on Luke. I actually prefer them to just be really good friends. But from Luke's perspective, I can see Annabeth really being a sister to him. But from Annabeth's perspective, I don't really think she even talks about Luke in the show. Also, this line almost ruined this scene for me.
I heard everything.
You were invisible and you took off the hat. That was pretty obvious. But this really makes me hopeful for season 2. I feel like the things that were good were amazing. This was a rough start, but I think Disney can learn from this. Just leave in some of the dramatic irony from the books, add some character development and relationship growth, and this can be a really great series if Disney just listens to the fans and puts in some more effort and love. But that's enough of what I think. You guys tell me what you think in the comments, because I know you will. But seriously, did you love the show? Did you think it was better than the book or worse than the book? Was there things that you didn't like also that I didn't touch upon? Let me know. Are you guys excited for a season 2? I really hope they finish the whole series. And I hope it gets better as it goes, because I think this could be amazing. But I am out of here. You guys have a wonderful day. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'm gonna go unsubscribe to Disney. See you guys later.